Hello, everybody. My name is Benny, and welcome to the Fool's Apprentice. Today, we are doing the one card tarot study, and I have a special guest today who is going to be doing the star card with me. Hi, how are you doing?
Hey, good. How are you, Benny?
I'm doing really, really well. How are you?
I'm good. I just celebrated my birthday on Sunday, so
Oh, very nice. Did
yeah.
you do anything special?
We went out to dinner and we got an ice cream cake from Dairy Queen
Very nice.
and
Oh, you have a Dairy Queen. I love Dairy Queen.
yes, yes,
And will you introduce yourself to the viewers, please?
absolutely. So my name is Ange, and you'll find me here on YouTube as Roots and Waves. You can also find me on Instagram. I've been reading tarot for 10 and a half years now,
Oh, I didn't
but
realize that. That's a good amount of
yeah.
time.
Yeah, so since 2014, yeah, the beginning of 2014. But my card journey began with Oracle. So really, I've been reading the cards for like 21 years. But I
You
started with
did
like Angel.
you did 11 years of just Oracle cards?
Yes, yes, because I started
Wow.
with Angel, like Doreen Virtue Angel cards and all of that.
Yeah.
So that was my sort of step into it. And I always thought, oh, I don't know about the tarot. But eventually, when I dipped my toe in there was no turning back. But so now I actually read with a combination of tarot, oracle, and charms together. So like it's a layered reading. So that's my style, and that's the way I've been doing it now for like the last 14 years. Yeah. So.
Very cool. I bought some charms. I went through this little phase of buying a whole bunch of charms. Um I haven't really used them. I played around with them, but I haven't really used them in a reading. I did get a charm mat last year, which I haven't used yet, but I still have. Eventually, I'll get there. Learning the tarot has been a bit of a struggle. So that's one of the reasons I'm doing this series is because I'll get to learn a lot more from everybody. It makes me accountable to studying the tarot as much as I can. So, really excited that you're here to discuss the star.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. The series has been great so far. I've learned a lot from the guests that you've had on, and I think this is a great idea. So I'm so excited that you asked me to do the star card because I knew that you were looking for people, and I just had
Mhm.
figured you had enough. You had 78 people, and then you and I were talking, and you're like, would you be interested? And I'm like, you know what? This is very fitting for my time in my life right now. So yeah, let's do it. So uh, I love divine timing, so that's part of the
Yeah,
star card actually.
we will be done with the second half of the major arcana, and then we're going to go into the pentacles. And I still need like three or four people for the pentacles, which I think people will volunteer to do.
Nice.
But the star card, can you give me? Oh, which Rider-Waite-Smith clone do you have, or do you have the original?
Oh, I have the plaid back, so
Okay,
from the yellow box.
yeah,
Yeah.
very
So that's
nice.
cool.
So, what is your interpretation of this card?
So, I mean, all of the typical words like hope and clarity and things
Hmm.
like that, of course. Um, it depends on the context of the reading, who I'm reading for, and what the question is if I'm reading for myself. But really, how I like to view this card, since we have just come out of the tower, I really like to look at this as vulnerability and inner resilience and sort of like that threshold liminal space.
Hmm.
Because, if we think about the tower that came before, the moon that comes after, like that's how I read. Like I always have to like see what comes before or after. And it's like you really are in this liminal space of like, wow, I've just come out of this, destructive time of upheaval and chaos. And so it's sort of like this calmness that comes over you. And the star card really strips you down to the very essence of who you are.
Okay.
Um, Sort of like the phoenix rising from the ashes, what
Oh,
like
I
what is
love
left.
that.
Yeah, like what is left after the tower, really. And you're stripped down bare, you're vulnerable. It's like, okay, well, we got to figure this out now. And it's really that like fresh start and that like ascension, if you will, the beginning work, I feel, of like that real deep inner work of like figuring out where you need to go from here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, the hope card, I when I think of this card, it's that that big relief that, okay, the worst is behind me.
Yes.
Like, because yes, right after the tower, and of course the devil is there. So there's these, I think, three cards close to each other where it's been a journey. So I see this as the this wishing upon a star that finally comes
Yeah.
true. It's over. Um,
Mhm.
but it doesn't have to be like a long journey, a long thing of being ill for a long time or one bad thing after another happening. I think most people have stretches in their life where you're like, is this
Mhm.
bad luck ever gonna end? Will I ever like see the light of day? But it also can be like a short crisis that happens where you get to the other side and you're just relieved that everything's going to be fine. I'm going to be okay. Things,
Yep.
are looking up. And then, like, I also see this card as outside of the hope, like a sense of peace. Now you can rest and you don't have to be so uptight and you don't have to struggle and fight all the time anymore.
Mhm.
And so that's generally how I see this card. Um, it's just that moment where, you can freely breathe. Taking a breath doesn't feel so heavy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's a real healing feeling to this card, of
Yes.
um growth, but like it's time to for self-care. It's time for growth in a way that you've never really taken the time to do before because you haven't had this particular life experience until right now. Um so and it also covers spirituality. When we are all going through whatever it is that's that tower moment, what is it that we're reaching for? Like, what is it that we're hopeful in? Where do we put our faith? Whatever that looks like for each individual person. And that's where the star card comes into place too, is sort of being able to ground ourselves, here, but also, where are we reaching for above in terms of our belief system?
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, the healing. Yeah, I do see the healing, especially if you look at the cards before physical healing, spiritual healing, mental health healing, like with the devil
Hmm.
card and the idea of, being addicted to something or not being able to get away from something. And then the
Hmm.
tower where everything comes crashing down. And um, it always for me, it doesn't always have to be a bad thing that you're really like if you look at the tower, it's just a major upheaval in life. And
Hmm.
so that could be something as good as getting a job promotion, but now the learning curve is really, really deep. And this
Yes.
card finally lets you know that things are about to change. You're getting it. You're going to be fine. You're going to
Hmm.
because when you start a new position anywhere, it can be a little overwhelming. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you have a day where you're like, okay, I'm getting this. Okay, we're going to be okay. Even though you still got a lot of learning to do, this card does that. It lets you know that things are about to change very quickly for you.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good to point out because, like you said, change doesn't always have to be upheaval.
Right.
Change is just uncomfortable and is supposed to be. And so, yeah, you're right. There is that sort of comfort that comes with the star card. That once we're like finding our footing again,
Hmm.
whatever that may look like before. But yeah. Also in the star card, it's number 17, which if you do the math and add it up, it yeah, adds up to the number 8. And so the 8 card in the tarot is strength. So it ties back to that courage and that inner strength that you have to pull from
Yeah,
to get
resiliency.
resiliency. Yeah, exactly. And we're in an 8 year, if you add 2024 together. So, yeah,
This will be a good
courage.
card if this is your birth card. And then it has the eight stars. I've also heard that this card can, when I say heard, I mean read and saw videos on it.
Yeah.
Um, that this is like the star card, like your star, like your shining star, like you should be praised for the work you've done, the talents that you possess, putting a spotlight on yourself and being okay with being acknowledged for your accomplishments. I
Mhm.
don't necessarily see that. Do you see that? Do you feel that in this card?
That definitely could come out in a reading. I think for the amount of people I've read for in my lifetime, that maybe only came out once, and it was somebody was actually a performer on stage,
Hmm.
and then therefore that would be fitting for that person. But no, usually when I read for myself or others, it's not literally being a star. But I have read that the other stars that are surrounding her are supposed to be the chakras,
Oh, I haven't
right?
heard
The
that.
seven. Yeah, so the seven stars around her are like the chakras, and this one, in the big one in the middle, is supposed to represent you or whoever you're reading for as like their core essence of like who you are. And
Okay.
that, yeah, and that always reminds me of like when I look at the big star, it always reminds me of the essence of who we are in terms of like we are all stardust,
Mm.
um, like literally down to the micro, atoms and things like that is like the like oxygen, hydrogen, carbon, all of
Hmm.
that good stuff that we learned in chemistry class. Yeah, so it just sort of goes back to the core essence of who we are and the fact that we're all like interconnected. So there's actually a lot to unpack in this card, and
There is a
like I
lot
said,
of symbology, you
there
know.
is, yeah, yeah,
I've heard I'm not so I get all this knowledge. Doesn't mean I've been able to digest it and like, use it in practice. That's like what I was saying about, being a star and the light on you.
yeah.
Also, with the water pouring into the lake or the pond, that's your way of having to give back to the collective, to everybody, to everything, to the universe. Have you heard that?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's also sort of um, bringing fertility back to like the barren land. That's with all the green lush
Oh,
around her,
okay.
and like pouring that, but also dealing with like emotions, because like with, even though this is technically an air card because it's ruled by Aquarius, um, the water bearer, quite literally, is what she's doing there, um, can also like represent this sort of release of emotions. So crying, of course, you may be crying when you're healing, and then also the five little streams that are coming out from the
Oh,
second pot that she's pouring
yeah, I haven't even
represent
noticed that.
that those five streams represent our five senses, right? So
Oh,
connecting back to our five senses. Yeah. So the chakras, our senses, emotions. Yeah. So there's a lot, like I said, to unpack here, and a lot of key points to go off of when you are reading it. So it doesn't always have to be like hopeful and this and that. It can be all these other little things that may be trying to get your attention.
do you have an
Yeah.
idea of what this little bird means? I haven't had a time to look it up.
Yeah, that's ibis. Yeah, so that's an ibis, and it goes back to like ancient Egyptian times, and it's supposed to represent thought, and it can
Okay.
also represent like the written thought or like the thought of the mind. Yeah,
Contemplation.
so yeah, so the ibis bird sits in the tree of the mind is what that's supposed to represent. So yeah, there's a lot to this card. I love it.
What about reversals? Do you do reversals with this card?
So how I read is I don't physically reverse my cards because it really bothers me. I don't like
Yeah.
the way like it looks, like when they're reversed. But when I'm reading, I can definitely tell if there's an energetic shift to read it in the shadow meaning, if you
Yeah.
will. So,
I
you know,
love the energetic shift. I love that phrase.
yeah. Yeah, because you can definitely feel,
Yes.
it's very different to feel like hopeful and all this like positivity to, quite frankly, negativity or like a lack mindset or hopelessness, despair, lack of self-esteem, just that would feel very different than what we just described.
Yeah. I don't have really like reversals either. I do read based on intuition and what I feel and the cards and the people.
Mhm.
This card is another card that doesn't come up very often for me, so I don't have a lot of experience with this card. But if I read kind of the verse, it feels like somebody who is comfortable being stuck and doesn't want to get unstuck,
Yep.
that
Exactly.
because there's still a choice in that. Not
Mhm.
being able to see beyond the rubble of the tower, just sitting there and just being overwhelmed by looking at what they see in front of them and not seeing that they can get up and walk away if they need to. So,
Yes.
but I don't have any big reversals. So, what's your favorite star card?
Okay. So my favorite star card is
Take a
um
big in breath.
It's from the Spacious
Oh,
Tarot.
okay. Yes, I have that one.
So it's very simplistic, and it's like as if you're looking up at the
Yeah.
stars. And I really like that because it strips away all of this imagery, and it just sort of gets back to the basics of what I think this card really represents. And again, I think it's about that the bigger picture, the interconnectedness, that sort of liminal space that we're floating in. Because again, like remember, we moved from the star into the moon card, where that's a whole another ball game of sort of exploring the unconscious and things like that. So I just like the perspective of this, and it always makes me feel like I'm laying down, looking up at the stars, and just all those thoughts that you get when you look up and just realize how amazing this world is that we live
How
in, and how
magical the world
vast.
is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have the Rainbow Tarot card.
Oh, yes.
Have you seen
Hmm.
this one?
Yes, I have that deck.
Oh
I
yeah,
haven't really.
I got the indie, but they have it in mass market now as well. And it has everything. It has the water, the sun, that little bird. I forgot what you called it again. Doesn't have the five streams on this side, but it has everything you need, I think, to be able to recognize this card quite easily. Um,
Yeah,
I just love, I think when I look at this card, it's how I think the star feels. Like if you had to pick an image that represented the emotion behind the star, this is one that I would show.
yes.
You know,
I like the
things are
colors.
looking up, things are good, the sun is happy, there's color. All of a sudden, you could see all the flowers and the vibrancy of
Mhm.
it all. So that's why I chose this one. I, Again, this may not necessarily be my favorite, but this is the one that's kind of stood out. I'm finding when I ask people, like for me, like, what's your favorite card? I'm finding that there are many cards that I don't necessarily have a favorite. I have cards I
Yeah,
like, but I don't have one that's like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like the
right.
Devil in the Spoiler is my favorite. Um, I have two hermits that I really adore. One of them from the Bohemian Gothic, and then the other
Hmm.
one from the Fantastic Menagerie. And that's because it makes me laugh. So, um, yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thanks for having me. I love this. I love, like I said, I love this series, and the fact that you're going to round 78 people up is just amazing. So I think this is a great asset to the community for sure.
Oh, thank you. It's been a ride. Let me tell you, it's been a real ride. I'm
Yeah,
finishing up the second half. I have a few more to record. Then I get to take a break, do other videos, and then we come back and we start the Pentacles. So I'm really excited.
that is cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, my name is Benny, and I am the Fool's Apprentice. Bye, guys.
Bye.